Thanks for joining me today. We are talking about Marvel's Spider-Man on PS4 and the Game Awards. Before I get any further into this, you should know that this is a hand-picked subject by you guys. Come over to our Instagram at GBW Podcast. I put up polls on what videos I should make next, and this was the one that was picked. So thank you for everyone that voted. I really appreciate it. Now let's get on with the show. Pretty soon we'll get into the awards I think Spider-Man should have won, but first, let's go over the nominations and the critical reception that Spider-Man got. This year, Spider-Man was nominated for Game of the Year, Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, Best Score/Music, Best Audio Design, Best Performance, and Best Action Adventure Game. That is 7 nominations total it received from the Game Awards. A Metacritic of 87, and on top of that, we have 3.1 million copies in 3 days, making it the fastest selling PS4 exclusive, alongside with 1 million copies pre-ordered, which is also a record for Sony. You guys probably remember how it was. When this game released, this game was everywhere on social media. Videos, posts, everybody was posting pictures from the amazing photo mode. I swear that photo mode deserves a digital photography award in itself. It was the best photo mode of the year. By far, everybody was sharing it, making their own comic books. It was literally a small phenomenon in the gaming industry. Even though God of War was the game that eventually won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, Spider-Man was the reason you bought a PS4 this year. During the holidays, Sony came out with one of the best bundles I've seen in a long time, and that was a slim 1TB console bundled with Spider-Man for $200. That is insane. If you didn't pick that up and didn't have a PS4, like, there's something wrong with you. If you could find that deal, go get it. That's an amazing deal. And what a smart move for Sony. Right now, Microsoft is slowly creeping back into people's hearts. Nintendo Switch is dominating, and they release a $200 bundle with one of their best games they've ever made. But even though you probably bought it, even though you maybe convinced someone else to buy it or to buy a PlayStation for it, it ended up receiving 0 awards at our biggest gaming event maybe of the year now. Is it bigger than E3? It almost seems like it, with PlayStation skipping out on E3 and it seems like announcements become more lackluster every year. Game Awards is slowly becoming my favorite gaming event of the year. And just like Horizon Zero Dawn last year, Spider-Man got completely overshadowed by honestly amazing games that also came out this year. This is a game that came out the same year of God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2, so you have to admit there was a lot of things going against it this award season. Now I'm going to break down some of the categories it was nominated for, some more so than others, and then I'm going to express my opinion and tell you what awards I think this game should have won. Now let's talk about Game of the Year. This is easily the hardest category it was in by far. God of War was my game of the year, Red Dead might be your game of the year, or Spider-Man might be your game of the year. The only problem is it seemed like this was a game that, if probably it had another 10 to 15 hours, maybe it would be in that perfect 10 talk, right? But this was a game that seemed to be a 9 in a year of 10s. And when it comes down to Game of the Year, I think the thing that falters most with Spider-Man is that it was too short. God of War and Red Dead Redemption made me feel like I was completely full, like I was completely satisfied. And when I was done with Spider-Man, even though it's probably one of my favorite endings of a game this year, but when I was done with it, I was like, there needs to be more. There needs to be more story. There needs to be a couple more hours into this adventure, and there wasn't. Maybe that's what hindered it completely at the end. I'm not too sure, and we will probably never know. But I think a lot of people can agree with me when we just say we wanted more, because everything was so good. Which leads me to Best Game Direction. This is another hard category for Spider-Man to be in, but I do believe it was way more doable than Game of the Year. God of War and Cory Barlog won this Game Direction award because they took a franchise that we already knew, that we already had established feelings for, a character that maybe we didn't like, and they completely turned it into something totally different, changed the gameplay, changed the characters, and they did such a great job at making a perfect game in a lot of people's eyes. And I think that was also the case for Marvel's Spider-Man this year. We've had some very mediocre Spider-Mans of late, but what Insomniac did with these characters, they made their own deliberate turns in the story and the plot that they made, and they created a Spider-Man world that we all loved, and I think that we all very much wanted to be in. And this is something pretty interesting I want you to think about. We've heard a handful of stories about Kratos, the God of War, but think of how many times you've heard of Spider-Man and all of his adventures. For a company to come in and create something new, that is such a big accomplishment just in itself. So whether or not it won Best Game Direction, hats off to Insomniac. They're doing a great job, and we cannot wait to be able to play the trilogy of this game that is definitely coming, right? We know that these sequels are coming. We know that more games are coming of this Spider-Man universe, so I'm all for it. Let's just dive in, and hey, maybe it'll win Best Game Direction next year. Now I'm getting into Best Narrative, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. I don't think it should have won Best Narrative. I think there was better games with a better narrative. I mean, can we get an award for Spider Cop? I'll allow that. I'm down with an award for Spider Cop. Great narration by Spider Cop. Other than that, I think the story of Peter Parker, the way he told it, the way we saw his struggles, I did think it was very much a Spider-Man story, and I don't think it offered something crazy different or a new way to look at Spider-Man. It was still definitely the Spider-Man that I knew and loved, and there was nothing wrong with that, but it just doesn't win a Best Narrative award. Now, an award I really think that Spider-Man should have won, and that's Best Score/Music. Red Dead Redemption 2, the winner of Best Music, they had the amazing performance that made me a believer of the Red Dead music. Okay, I had no problem with it, but all I'm saying is the Spider-Man music was amazing. Let's just listen to it for a second. See, it's really good. It's really good. It's like, it makes me feel like I'm a superhero. I turn the game on and like I hear it, and then I'm like going through the city and it's playing in the background, and then like I swing in front of like the sun or like, you know, just whatever, like the perfect horizon line, and this music is playing and I feel like a superhero, and it's such good music. I love the theme of Spider-Man PS4. Out of all the nominations, I think this is like the top 2 nominations I think it should have won for. Another game nominated in this category was Octopath Traveler, and I feel like both Spider-Man and Octopath got completely robbed and overshadowed by Red Dead. Like I said, Red Dead, really great music. I really enjoy it, but I don't know. I just like the other music more. And like I said, the Spider-Man music made you feel like Spider-Man. And not that the Red Dead music didn't make me feel like a cowboy, but it just felt like it was music that I've heard already. Another thing I was listening for is audio design, which leads me to the best audio design category. When you have headphones on, you're swinging through the city, you hear the air rushing past your face, you hear the thwip of your web, the design was there. You're chasing criminals with all of these debris crashing around you, feeling like the city is alive too. That's another thing, right? From the cars passing by to people saying, yo, Spider-Man, you know, whatever it was. It did make you feel like you were in this world, and I think the design was really good. And I look at both of these audio categories with Best Score/Music, and I'm just left wondering how it didn't win one of these guys. But once again, it went against really great music, you know. Also, these are games that like went against Celeste, you know, and things like that. And who knows, right? Maybe if this was a different year, maybe if Red Dead wasn't in it, who knows what would have happened. I really do think, though, that Spider-Man deserves an audio credit somewhere. And now for the third category that has a lot to do what we heard from Spider-Man PS4, and that was Best Performance, okay? Now, personally, I voted for Christopher Judge, Kratos. Okay, he didn't win either. It was Roger Clark, the guy that plays Arthur Morgan in Red Dead. Like I said, Red Dead cleaned house, you know. But let's talk about Yuri Lowenthal's performance as Spider-Man. I think it was really great. He was a great Peter Parker, right? I think that was the best thing, is that whenever I played Spider-Man, I was like clearly intact, having a relationship with this character, me and Peter, you know, swinging through the city. I was Peter, Peter was me, and it was because this Peter character that Yuri created was so on spot, right? He was one of the best Peters I've seen, right, in the series. He was great. He was caring. When things really go down in the climax, the way that he is performing what Peter is doing and how he is talking to the villains and bad guys around him and how he is reacting, it's just amazing. I really think that Spider-Man PS4 has one of the best endings I've played this year. You know, I really enjoyed the ending, and that is really due to Yuri, right? He nailed it. He nailed everything about it. In a year with Kratos and Arthur Morgan, you know, something that's crazy about the performance of Arthur Morgan in Red Dead is just like they practice lines where they're like yelling back and forth to each other. When they walk farther away, audio lines become shouting rather than talking, and it's just like there had to be so much work for that Red Dead Redemption role. Like, I understand why he won, right? I'm sure he may have been in the studio more than any of these actors, you know, maybe two of these actors combined. Who knows how long this guy was in the studio for. He even said in his award speech, just like, thank you to my family who had patience, and I really respect that. I think his award speech was really good. But once again, you know, this is a game of tens, and it seemed like Spider-Man fell in this 9 category, even though it had a lot of 10 type qualities about it, right? But now we're going to get into the true snub of the award show, okay? This is the award that Spider-Man should have won, hands down. There's nothing in my mind, nothing that you can tell me. I'm a believer, okay? It should have won this award, and that is Best Action Adventure Game. I'm going to read the description of Best Action Adventure Game for the category of the Game Awards. For the Best Action Adventure Game, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. Okay, let's break that down. Combat. Okay, maybe Spider-Man didn't have better combat than God of War, but it was still extremely satisfying, and it was still fun and fresh, and as long as you remembered to fight a little bit different, you can keep the combat fresh in the game just by playing it differently. Then it goes on to say traversal, okay? This is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. How do you pick any other game with better traversal than Spider-Man? I call bullshit. I call bullshit. And here's the thing is, I feel like when you go to like combat or, you know, puzzle solving or whatever it is, you know, like everything's very close with combat and puzzle solving, I think, right? Right? But when you go to traversal, Spider-Man is just fucking miles ahead of all these other games. Spider-Man is miles ahead of the boat and Mimir in God of War. Like, I like the boat and listening to the head Mimir talk, but I love swinging through the city. That was the biggest gameplay hook of Spider-Man. No matter what I was doing through the end of the game, the whole experience, even after the experience, the funnest part is still swinging the web. Like, and I get the axe is fun in God of War, but guys, if you put traversal in the description of the award, then Spider-Man should have won. And it makes me so upset because, you know, like, I feel like when I saw God of War win, I was like, oh, God of War isn't going to win Game of the Year. They gave this to God of War because Red Dead will take Game of the Year, right? But no, they couldn't even go in there and say, you know what, because of traversal, Spider-Man takes it, you know, and I just think that's crazy. To the people that voted out there, what are you doing? Did you not read that it said traversal? Or did you just walk around? Did you only climb on walls and run around in Spider-Man? Are you a web-swinging hater? I don't know. I don't know why it didn't win, guys. But I'm just here to say that that's the award that it should have won. You can't... If you want to try to fight me in the comments, you want to tell me differently, then that's cool. That's cool, but let's be honest, guys. There was no better traversal game, okay? Now it's time to just wait and simmer, okay? Just like with Horizon Zero Dawn, we had to sit here and wait for Insomniac to realize that the recipe that they made for the Spider-Man game was really good, right? And now they have to perfect it. Maybe just give a little bit longer length to that campaign, right? I'm sure they set up the Spider-Man 2 game so perfectly. The end of Spider-Man 1, no spoilers, was just so good, right? And it put up so many avenues for the second game to prey on. So let's just wait. Maybe that game wins Game of the Year, hands down. Maybe it's just amazing in every aspect. That's all we could hope for, right? So thank you for joining me. I'm Oscar Lucio. This is Geeks Between Worlds. GBW out.